Perfect. Good evening, everyone, or good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. In the UK at the moment, it's 6 o'clock, so it's just gone evening, I would suggest. I'm Katie. I'm one of the careers consultants who works will be working with you through the careers service. And with me today, I've got Madeline. Would you like to introduce yourself?
So hi there, I'm Madeleine. I'm also one of the careers consultants. And so Katie's going to start off our presentation today, and I'm going to join in a little bit later. But while Katie's talking, just to let you know that you can ask us questions throughout this presentation. So there's a chat function on Teams. So if you look at the top of the screen, there's a little speech bubble which has chat written underneath it. If you go in there, you can type a question, and we'll be very happy to answer your questions as we go through. So as well as myself and Katie, we've also got Rich Carruthers, who is Deputy Director of the Career Service, and he is also going to be answering questions on the chat. So hello, Rich. Fantastic.
Hi,
So
Madeline,
back
Katie.
over.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to
Hi,
be in the
Rich.
background just dealing with the questions.
So hand over to you, Katie.
Super, alrighty. So without further ado, let's get us started. Now, just to let you know, before we get started, this was the most asked question in our earlier session. You will get a copy of the slides. We've also got a resources handout, and I'm going to send those out this evening after the session is finished. You will see it's being recorded, and you will be able to access that recording from about the 6th, so about Friday, we think. There'll be a link in the email that I send you, which will direct you through so that you can find that recording. We just need a little bit of time to process and upload it. So all of this will be available to you, and do feel free. You can share it with your other friends that you know that might be coming to Imperial or who weren't able to make it as well. Okay, so our plan for today, and also why we run these sessions, is that just to give you a little bit of a feel for what you are coming along to at Imperial, and to help you start to think. I know it seems a long time away already, you're just starting that master's, but within the UK, we have some very tight deadlines as to when applications open, both for PhDs and for graduate recruitment jobs, which I'll talk about and explain about those in just a moment. So we run these sessions before you start, just so you can kind of hit the ground running when you arrive at Imperial. Plus, there's some things that you can start to do now to help make that transition into Imperial a little bit smoother. So we're going to talk a little bit about those timescales. We're going to give you hopefully a nice introduction to the careers service. Our last slide actually has got a really nice summary of all the things you can start to do now, and all the things that you'll be able to do when you join us on the 30th of September. So some of the things we're going to talk about you won't have access to now, just because you have to be a fully enrolled student, which doesn't happen until you completely arrive and start your course on the 30th of September. But we do have an awful lot of resources that we're going to hand out as well. Okay, but before we get started, we know Imperial is one of the most international universities in the world. You may have heard I've got a bit of a funny accent there. I'm actually from New Zealand. It was really great. We had a Kiwi in the session earlier, but we'd really like to know where you guys are coming from, or where you're dialing in from today. So please, if you're on the Menti, please do feel free to pop your location in. It's really interesting to see. We run 3 of these sessions, as you would have seen, and the time difference just helps us to see who's awake at various different times. Brilliant. So we've got lots of, a few people from the US joining us. Brilliant. And there's one down there from, I think it's Paraguay. It's hard to see. Sorry, my map's not very high resolution. Couple of folk from India, a few from the UK. We've got someone there from Libya. Brilliant. That's really, really good. Yeah. I'll leave this up for a little bit longer if people are wanting to to get involved. The Menti details, if you wanted to join in, are just at the top there. But it's always really interesting just to get a feel for who's coming along. Ah, brilliant! Couple of people from China. Nice, and good to see a few UK people supporting her here. Obviously sat at home, hopefully having some dinner shortly. Brilliant. Okay. Cool. Don't worry if you hadn't had a chance to get involved in this one. We've got another interactive slide in a little bit. Okay, I will download these so you can see who else was in our session. A few popping up now. Canada, brilliant. Okay, alrighty. Now moving along. So we mentioned the timescales. Now, I just wanted to say that these timescales are very UK specific. So the timescales for when job advertisements or PhD advertisements go out is very different across the whole world. And this is where it's nice that we've got so many people not from the UK. We can help you to understand the timescales for the UK specifically. And they're very soon. So what we see in the UK is in the next 3 months, so October and November, sort of primarily, but a few leaking into December, we will see a bulk of what we call the graduate programs coming out. So now a graduate program is run generally by a large company, so maybe a multinational company, but they tend to recruit an awful lot of graduates. So that graduate recruitment is what we call it, and it tends to happen about now. They recruit a year in advance, so they are recruiting you now for you to start in September, October next year when you've finished your masters. Now, generally, these tend to be those very large companies, and what we often see is that they have quite a long recruitment process. They're not for all of our students. We do know that lots of our students are more interested in working in smaller businesses, which is absolutely fine. They recruit a little bit later. I've got a slide on those in a minute. But the ones we don't want you to miss, if you did want to work for one of those big sort of multinational company, is the large graduate recruitment program. So also about to come up is funded PhDs. So we know that Imperial, lots of our master's students are very interested in moving into a PhD, and there's quite a lot of funding out there for both international students and home students. So there is definitely more for home students. However, we have found in the last few years, more and more funding has become available for PhD, for students, international students who are looking at PhDs. So they start to be advertised in the next few months as well. So just to give you a pictorial view of that, you can see here that the larger employers open their windows and then they start to run all of their assessments and interviews, which I've got a slide on in a minute to help explain that a little bit more. Smaller employers tend to recruit a little bit later on in the year, and we'll see that kind of makes sense. If you think about a large employer, they usually have a lot more budget. They know a little bit more about what sort of job and work might be available for graduates and what that might look like in a year's time. Whereas smaller employers generally don't have enormous budgets, so they tend to recruit you a little bit closer to when they actually need you to start working, when they know they're going to have the work there for you. So generally, you would start looking at smaller employers around about February, March next year. However, you might start thinking about exploring what those smaller employers are now, or whenever you have time. So this is just to let you know. The one thing I haven't put on here actually is about the PhDs, which are starting to recruit now. There are PhDs on offer throughout the whole year, but we tend to see the bulk of the funded ones coming out before Christmas. Okay, so we just wanted to give you the little a heads up about that so you don't miss out, basically. And Madeline's going to talk a little bit more about PhDs and some of the jobs and how to explore some of those jobs a little bit later on. Now, what often goes hand in hand with lots of employers recruiting means that they're very interested in meeting you and getting in touch with you. So we tend to run a lot of our big careers fairs very soon after uni goes back. So you'll see here 3rd of October, 10th of October, 14th of October. So most of these big careers fairs, in fact, all of these big careers fairs this year are being run in October. A careers fair is where we get a whole lot of employers. They come onto the campus. We usually have it in a very large room on the South Kensington campus, and they each have a little stall, and you can go around and you can talk to them about the jobs they've got on offer, about sort of their company culture, and just find out a little bit more about what it is that that you might be doing if you were to work for them. Now you can see here we've sectioned our careers fairs sort of by industry, so you don't have to come to all of them. If you're not interested in banking and finance, then you probably won't want to come to the banking and finance career. You will need to book for some of these careers fairs. However, you won't be able to do that until you join us on the 30th of September. And Madeline's going to talk about our booking system, how you find these events and how you book for them. Okay, our biggest careers fair by far is the Engineering and Technology Careers Fair. And actually what we find at the Engineering and Technology Careers Fair is lots of employers who, yes, are engineering related, but that's where a lot of our IT sort of related, our programming careers, jobs come through. A lot of big pharmaceutical companies. So if you're looking at sort of medical research, that's the careers fair that you might be interested in. Alongside that, the other ones, life and health science in particular, you will find pharmaceutical companies too. So just a little heads up about these events, and Madeline's going to talk about how you find more of them. Also, we run employer presentations. This is last year's. We haven't firmed up our schedule for this year yet. There's lots of them in there already, however, but we just wanted to give you a feel for the type of companies that are interested in meeting Imperial students. Some of these employer presentations are online, some of them are in person, and you'll be able to see our full program once you have access to what's called the JobsLive program, which is where you book on to these events. Madeline will also talk to you about our newsletter. We give you a full rundown of what's happening, but I wanted to give you a flavour for the types of organisations that come. This is definitely not a definitive list. We have many more. These were just the ones in October. We actually run employer presentations the whole way through the year, so you can get involved in and can meet employers as that. Some of them we're able to record, and we pop those up on our website, so you can catch up on them if you aren't able to attend in person. Okay, now I mentioned that selection process, and what we've got here is a slide that gives you a flavour of what might be involved with an employer in particular and how they might recruit for a student. So some of you may have done internships, or you may have had jobs in the past, and some of these steps might seem familiar to you. Quite often with the larger employers, they have a multi-stage selection process, and this isn't necessarily what their process might look like. This is just indicative of what we've seen some look like. We know that each employer has slightly different processes, and actually if you're looking at recruitment, if you're looking at applying for a PhD, quite often it may just be that sort of applications, and then you'll go straight down to an interview. So different employers recruit in different ways. All of these stages, so the application forms, sort of application documents, CVs, cover letters, things like that, we have lots of resource available on our website, and you can start looking at that now. We have many tests and psychometric tests, and actually a lot of employers are moving towards sort of almost like a gamified tests that you do. So we've got lots of those psychometric tests that you can practice on our website. We have tools to help you practice interviews, along with lots of extra support, which Madeline's going to talk about, to help you understand how to prepare best for those interviews. And similar with assessment centres, which are generally sort of a few hours, and you will go along either to an employer or they might be online, and you will have to do a series of activities which help that employer to understand how you might act when you're actually doing the job. So just to give you an idea of the selection process you might have to go through for some of those jobs, if you're interested in working for those big multinational companies, primarily with their graduate recruitment programs. Now, before I hand over to Madeline, just wanted to wake you all up a little bit and see how people are feeling. So how are you feeling about starting at Imperial? It's always really interesting to see what sort of things people are thinking about. We've got about a month before you start, so probably about 3 weeks before you might start arriving. How are people feeling about starting at Imperial? Excited, amazing. It's always really good to see that coming up first, but I absolutely get the excited and nervous. So I think that that's really, it's that mixed feeling, isn't it, where you're sort of like, oh, I don't really know what to look forward to. I just, to let you know, I'm actually doing a master's myself this year, so I've been doing it part-time for the last couple of years, and I'm about to start my thesis this year, and I would say I definitely fall into that category of excited and nervous. Very much looking forward to it, but still a little bit anxious, not too sure what it's going to be like to have to write that big thesis. I think that's a smiling, happy, crying face. But yeah, nervous about the maths, absolutely. Don't worry, I've been working with some students who have been putting together extra maths support. So when you arrive, hopefully you can access that. We've got lots of amazings, greats. Oh, thank you very much. Congrats on my master. Haven't quite finished it yet, but hopefully very soon. That overwhelming and confused, absolutely get that. What we've got, I've got some resources that can hopefully help you to feel a little bit more comfortable with this understanding of what's out there. Okay, so we've got an online course that you can access now that can help you to understand a little bit more about what's going to happen when you start at Imperial, the difference between your undergraduate and your master's program. So hopefully in the next few slides, or at least by the end of the hour, you'll have a little bit more to go on if you're feeling that nervous, anxious, or confused. Okay, so I'm now going to hand back to Madeline, and she is going to take over.
So thank you for that, Katie. So what I'm going to do now is tell you a little bit about the Careers Service. So some of you may be continuing directly from your undergraduate into postgraduate study. So you might be fresh from another university or even Imperial itself. Other people, they might have had a period of time working and are coming back to study now. Also, we know that people are coming from all over the world, and the way that universities work and what's on offer is different in different countries. So what I want to do now is just explain a little bit about what we do at the Career Service and how we work, so that you can sort of understand what's available to you at Imperial. So I think it's nice to put some faces to the name. So this is our lovely team of careers consultants. So these are the people that you're most likely to interact with if you come and visit us at the Career Service, maybe come to one of our talks or have a one-to-one appointment with a careers consultant. We actually have a load of other people as well who work very busily on doing things like organising those career fairs and the other events that we put on. So it's lots of work going on, and we're not an AI tool, we're actually real people and we're here to help. So next slide, please. Okay, so this slide kind of talks you through the best way to get the most out of our service, really. So we'll start at the top and we'll talk about the website. So we have a website and it's got loads of great information on it. And you can start using that today because our website is open to the world, really. So we don't sort of cut people off unless they're at Imperial. So actually that's available to you now, and there's actually tons of information on there. So sometimes students overlook the website and they come straight to maybe having an appointment with us, but actually they could have got their questions answered on the website. The great thing about the website is it's available 24/7. So if you decide at 4 o'clock in the morning or the weekend that you have a burning careers question, you can perhaps get that answered simply on the website when we're all tucked up in bed, fast asleep. Okay, so if we go step down, meet employers. So Katie's already taken you through lots of the ways that you have to actually engage with employers. You can come to as many of those events as you like. There's not a restriction on that. There are some of our events where you need to book, and they might be very, very popular, but we have some of our events, like some of our career fairs, it's like turn up on the day. Okay, so lots and lots of opportunities to meet with employers. I would say it's a great thing to take advantage of that, because there's so many interesting organizations out there, different companies doing really exciting things, and they really will come and give you a talk and tell you all about what they do. So even if you think you know what you want to do, you might take advantage of this opportunity and come and kind of broaden your mind a little bit and see, what other options are out there. Also, if you're just not sure at all what you want to do, maybe just try a few talks and just get into the swing of it and kind of be interested in what's around. Okay. A key point, which is really worth thinking about, is employers only really come to careers fairs or give talks at a university when they want to hire people. So even if you can't make a particular talk, it's worth noting the name of the company, because that might be a company worth looking into, because they're obviously in the business of hiring people at the moment. So the next step down is workshops. So one of the things we want to do is help people to really learn how to get through all of those processes Katie has just described efficiently and confidently. So there's lots of things there. We've talked about CVs, application forms, psychometric tests, interviews, and so on. So one of the things that we do is we put on a series of workshops and we repeat them over and over again through the year. So you have loads of chances to come to those workshops and basically get a really good insight into how to do well when you're applying for things. Okay, so I'll tell you what the topics that we cover are in a few minutes, but it's worth knowing you can attend as many of those as you want to. Okay. So right at the bottom of that triangle are the one-to-ones. So if you're not familiar with that concept, this is an opportunity to actually have a confidential, free, private discussion with an experienced professional careers consultant. Okay, so we do offer all of the students at Imperial the opportunity to have one-to-one appointments with careers consultants. But as you can imagine, that is the bit of this offering that we have that has to be a bit restricted, because, restricted on availability of careers consultants and time. So we put as many appointments in as we possibly can, but you can only have up to 3 of these every 90 days. Okay, so you actually have a lot of chance to have meetings with us, because we also support you for 3 years after you graduate. So lots of appointments available, but we would encourage you to see if you can have the chance to use the website or come along to a workshop to get some of your questions answered. And that might be a more efficient way really for you to actually access the support. But the one-to-ones are there, and if you're feeling really stuck and you really don't know what to do about careers, you can come and have a chat to us. Or if you want to get a CV and cover letter checked or talk through how to prepare for an interview, for example. So next slide, please. Lovely. So this is kind of saying the same thing again, but a little bit more detailed sort of overview of all the things that we do. You've heard some of this already. So we organise these career fairs and the employer presentations, so lots of chances to meet employers. We also have a jobs board. Okay, so some companies really want to attract Imperial students. And so what they do is they send us their job adverts or their internship adverts, and we put them on a hosted kind of jobs board there. You can come and have a look at those. It's a really great place to keep an eye on and a great place to start. You might find your dream opportunity on there, but I would also say that, you're probably worth looking at other places as well, not just relying on one jobs board. So I would recommend to kind of look a bit more broadly than that. We have advice on where to look for jobs and good jobs boards and how to search for opportunities as well. Obviously, we're here to help you learn how to make successful applications and how to do well in job interviews. Now, no one is actually born with the ability to do a really good job interview or a really good CV. So we all have to learn this. And our aim is to help you to learn quickly and efficiently to kind of take the stress out of this whole process. We put students in touch with alumni. So at many of our panel events and so on, we will have alumni speaking. Many companies will bring alumni to their careers fairs and so on. So you have opportunity to engage there, and we have an Ask an Alumni tool as well that you can access. So overall, what we're trying to do is help you to plan your career. So there will be people listening to this talk who have a very clear idea of what they want to do, and they might be ready to start making applications pretty quickly, even as soon as they start at Imperial. But if you're one of those who's really feeling like, actually, right now, I'm not really sure what I want to do, or I need a bit more time to think about it, or I want to experience my master's before I really decide where that's going to take me, then that's absolutely fine. You can engage with us at whatever stage you are with your thinking. We're here to help. And, we know that it needs to happen at the right time for you. Okay, so the next slide, please. Okay, so this is just a screenshot of our website so that you know what it looks like, so that you know if you end up there that you're on the right pages. At the bottom of this slide is a little link. So this website is actually very deep. It's got lots and lots of information in it. So I'll just give you a hint. Along the top there, you've got a drop-down menu with various different options. So one of the options, for example, is applications and interviews. So if you were to press on that bit of the screen, it opens up a huge big menu of things. And under there, you will find really useful things like example CVs, example cover letters, example personal statements, places to go to practice for psychometric tests, advice on interviews and case study interviews, and so on. So loads of stuff there, really like useful things for the students. If you're not sure what you want to do, we've actually got a section there called Plan Your Career. And if you open that up, there's lots of resources there to help you get you started on thinking about what you might like to do. So it's really worth kind of having a look at what's under there. We've also got under jobs and experience, we've got a list of places where you could look for jobs that are being advertised. Along to the right, you'll see a little button which says sign in to JobsLive. Okay, so on the next slide, thanks, Katie. On the next slide, this is a little screenshot of JobsLive. So JobsLive is our system that we use to allow for you to book with us, to book appointments, to book your place at events, to browse those job opportunities as well. So this is something that you're not going to be able to use until you start at Imperial. So from Monday, the 30th of September 2024, you'll be able to access this system. So as you can imagine, there's lots of work going on behind the scenes in Imperial right now to get the information of all of the new students that are going to be starting and get it all organised and get it all pulled into all of the kind of databases and things that we need to use. So right now, that's all happening behind the scenes so that from Monday, the 30th of September, you can access our JobsLive system. So there's a link at the bottom of this slide, or you can access it directly from that homepage of our careers service. I would recommend to you to put a little note in your diary because I think you're probably going to be quite busy on that Monday. So a little reminder, and it's a 5-minute job. It's a really quick one. So if you do 5 minutes and just set up your profile, I would encourage you to tick the box which allows us to send you our weekly newsletter. So we can't send you that newsletter until you tell us that it's okay for us to do that. But if you do that, then every Thursday, you're going to get a roundup of all of the things that are happening through the career service. So next slide, please. So that's just a little screenshot of that newsletter. It's really worth doing that because there's so much happening, okay? And we do sometimes get organisations telling us about opportunities to meet them and so on a little bit last minute. So it's worth having a look on that Thursday and just scanning through all of the different things that are happening in the next week. It is rather a long email, so I'm going to warn you about that to begin with, but you know, it will definitely mean that you'll stay in contact with what's really happening. Okay, so the next slide, please. Okay, so as I mentioned before, we have that series of workshops that we repeat over and over again throughout the year. You can attend as many of these as you want. You can attend the same one multiple times if you like. So we've got a series of topics and they're about an hour. We do them at different times of the day and these are delivered online. You need to book for these on JobsLive. There is an extra title that's a brand new one that's not on this list, which is a guide to writing cover letters and whether or not to use generative AI. So you can keep your eye out for that one. And these will be running over and over again. So lots of opportunity to come to these workshops. Next slide, please. And the one-to-ones. Okay, so our careers appointments are bookable on JobsLive again. So just to talk you through how that works. So every day, the appointments for the following day become available on the system at 7 o'clock in the morning. So if you were to go into the system at 7 o'clock on a Monday, all of those Tuesday appointments will appear on the system. Okay, so we have loads of appointments available. We offer them every single day of every single week, all the way through the year, in term and in the holidays. The only time we don't offer them is during the Christmas closure period when the whole college is shut for about 10 days. Okay, so lots of appointments. We put as many on as we can, but we also know that at peak times of the year, like October, there are lots of people who want to book those appointments. So if you have the experience of going onto the system on a Monday, maybe you didn't make it by 7, maybe you managed to get on there at 11 and there's no appointments available. That is not because we've given ourselves a day off, it's because they're all booked already. So the next day, a whole new set will come on for, in that case, the Wednesday. Okay, so do persist. You will be able to see us if you want to, but just also be aware that, you know, at peak times in the autumn, you might literally need to get up at 7 o'clock to make sure you get that appointment. You can have up to 3 of these every 90 days, and we have an option of either doing it online or doing it in person at the careers service. Okay, so it's always nice to meet people in person, but sometimes it's more convenient for people to do it online. So we have a mixture of the two. So next slide, please. Okay, so for those of you, this slide is really for those of you who are feeling really ready to dive into that job market right now. They're kind of thinking, I know what I want to do and I want to kind of go ahead with applying for jobs to start after my master's. So here are some tips. So one great thing to do is to find a focus. Okay, so it could be a focus on a type of role, for example. So you might say, actually, what I want to do is be a software engineer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for those vacancies across a range of different companies. Okay, that can really help you to be more efficient with your job searching. It might be a role, it might be a type of company. Or if it's further study, if it's a PhD, you might be trying to narrow down the type of research area that really interests you and trying to find out who's working in that area and who might you want to actually do your PhD with. When you're applying, send targeted applications. So a very common mistake is to basically write one cover letter and one CV and then send the same thing to everyone. That, generally speaking, doesn't work very well. And we often see that students who take that approach end up making a lot of applications, but not actually getting through to interviews at all. And they maybe come and see us 6 months down the line, feeling a bit confused about why they weren't successful. So the key here is you really need to make sure that each application you do is really bespoke. It's really tailored to the exact opportunity that you're applying for. And we can teach you how to do that. You can make the research you do into a particular type of work go further by applying to those similar roles in different companies. So one of the worries that people have about going onto the job market is time. Time management is a really big issue. So we understand that you're going to be starting a new course, maybe in a new city, and maybe even in a new country. And it might even be a while since you've studied. So there's a lot going on, lots of busyness. Okay, so you might be asking the question, how do I balance my time of the course that I'm doing, settling in, as well as maybe planning for what I want to do after the master's? So I always say to master's students, think about your priorities and think about when is the right time for you to go onto that job market. It is quite legitimate to say, I have to prioritize my studies right now. But for those of you who feel that you can balance the course and going onto the job market, think about efficiency, think about doing it in a way that's going to maximize your time. But don't try to create that efficiency by making generic, untargeted applications. So we want to aim for quality and also a reasonable number. Reasonable number is a difficult question to answer how much that is, but you can make it more efficient by, say, if you research what it is to be a software engineer, why you want to be a software engineer, what's involved in that, then that knowledge can go into multiple applications for that similar sorts of roles. And then you just need to think about the specific company each time that you're applying for. Be organized. You can really save a lot of stress by being organized. Use a spreadsheet. Keep track of each application that you make, the closing dates, what documents you've sent, and how far you get in the process. That can be really good because you can see your progress, you can see what you're doing, and you can also perhaps see where you're getting stuck in those processes. So you might start to see a trend after a while that it's really the video interviews, for example, that are tricky for you. And that allows you to then target your resources to try and help get better at that specific bit of the process. Don't worry if you get rejected for some jobs that you apply for. It's very normal. Okay, so everybody experiences that. Nobody gets every job they ever apply for. Okay, so see it as something that you need to learn as you go. And you're always learning when you engage with the job market and if you're reflecting on how it's going. The only mistake really is to say, I'm so scared of getting rejected that I'm not going to apply to anything. Okay, so if you do that, then you're not going to learn how the job market works and you're not going to get kind of the job offer that you want. So the only way really to learn is by engaging with the job market. Okay, so think about when's the right time for you to do that. And then, when you're doing it, be organized as you're doing it and then reflect as you go. And then if you're getting stuck, come and see us and we'll help you to work out what's going on. So next slide, please. So just a little word about further study, because that was a little bit there about going on the job market, but I'm aware that there's probably people on this call who are interested in further study. So the first thing to say about that is people worry sometimes that, oh, who do I go for support with that? Because they think the career service is only for people looking for jobs. So that's not true at all at Imperial, because so many Imperial students do choose further study that we're very experienced at helping students to plan for that and to make good applications for that as well. So we can definitely support you with planning further study. It might be that you're at the stage of saying, I definitely want to do a PhD, in which case we can help you to kind of work out how to make that happen and how to make good applications. It might be that you're just thinking about that. Okay, so one of our workshops is actually called Should I PhD or Not? And it's designed to help people who are thinking, I'm not sure whether I should do a PhD. Okay, so something worth saying, of course, when you're at Imperial as a master's student is you're going to be surrounded by people who've got PhDs and you're going to be having lots of support from in your department and your personal tutor and lots of people to talk to about this. So it's a really good opportunity to explore it as an option while you're at Imperial. So next slide, please. So we have a web page which is all about further study and funding, and that would be a good place to start. Okay, so the link's on this slide, having a read through. And the next slide And there are actually other resources beyond us as well, which we can point you towards. We don't try and replicate those resources because they're very good. And so we don't need to sort of copy everything that they've done. We can point you towards those resources. I don't think anybody on this call is going to need the Find a Master's web pages because you've already got a master's. But if you're thinking about a PhD, I'll draw your attention to the website called findaphd.com. It's not just got adverts for PhD opportunities, but it's also got loads and loads of articles and advice and tips on everything to do with applying for and making a PhD happen and funding and so on. So it's a really good place to look. Jobs.ac.uk is another really good website for people who are interested in the academic career path. That's where all the jobs in universities get advertised in the UK. And it does also carry adverts for PhDs as well as sort of information really about funding and so on. It's also a great place if you're looking for research assistant jobs as well. So there's a couple of resources we can point you to. Next page, please. So a couple of tips if you're one of the people who are thinking about a PhD. One of my first tips for you is really shop around and think about your different options. There's so much interesting research happening in the world, so much interesting kind of new ideas and research groups and ways that people do research in different ways. Obviously, at Imperial, we're going to be in a place where a lot of really world-leading research happens, and so that's a really good place to kind of start looking. But you don't have to do your PhD at Imperial just because you did your master's there. And I would really encourage you to explore, to look around, maybe thinking about different research topics, different research groups, different institutions, even different countries. Okay. A PhD takes a good bit of time, 3 to 4 years at minimum. And so you want to make sure you're going into the right PhD for you. So don't feel that you have to rush into it. So we're talking here a little bit about how some of those funded PhD opportunities are going to be coming up this autumn. But it's perfectly okay to decide that you need more thinking time or you want to experience doing your master's project before you really commit to a research direction for your PhD. So there will be PhD opportunities available later in the academic year, and some people choose to complete their masters and then apply for PhDs after that. Okay, so all of these are perfectly fine options. So the main thing to do is start thinking about it, start talking to people, start reading up a little bit about it, and start just exploring what's the right direction for you. If you do get to the point where you're going to make an application, we have a webpage which has got some advice on what you should be writing in your personal statement. And if you wanted someone to have a look at your application materials or help you prepare for an interview, you can come to the career service for that as well. So next slide, please. And I'm going to hand back to Katie, who's got some tips for you on resources.
Super, thanks, Madeline. So I'm going to run through a lot of different resources, and don't worry, I'm going to do it relatively quickly. But as I said, you'll all get a copy of the slides, and you'll be able to explore these in your own time. The first section of resources are from our careers service. So some of these you're able to access now. Many of them you may not be able to log into until that 30th of September when you arrive with us. The first one, however, you can access now. So this is potentially one of our most used websites, I think. And it's all about how to do CVs, cover letters, and personal statements. So we call them sort of application documents. What we create every year, and I think the new one is about to go live in the next wee while. The old one's still up there. It's perfectly fine, so please do make use of it. But we have a booklet that's got examples of CVs, cover letters, and personal statements. So no matter what you're thinking about applying to, you can get an example, you can see some resources and get some extra support if this is something that you wanted to start thinking about before you arrived at Imperial. Okay, so that's available now. One of the things you'll have to wait for, unfortunately, is until the 30th of September, is a tool that we have. It's a massive database called Going Global. So we mentioned that a lot of the talk is about if you're looking at applying to the UK, especially with those timelines. However, we realise lots of our students go and work in different countries. So we have a tool called Going Global, which you can access from the 30th of September, that has a lot of different employers. It's got a massive database of countries. There's lots and lots of jobs on there and lots of extra support to help you understand what it might be like to work in different countries, getting visas for different countries and things like that. So a really good resource to access once you're able to. The other one is we know that lots of our students are a little bit nervous about doing job interviews or PhD interviews, which is absolutely fine. I think even I still get nervous about doing an interview. So we have a platform called Shortlist Me where you can practice these interviews. Again, you won't be able to access this until the 30th of September, but we have example interviews from different industries. Some employers have uploaded interviews there, so you can have a little practice, think about what sort of questions you might be asked, have a go at answering them, and then you'll get a little bit of feedback on what might help you to improve that. So Shortlist Me is a wonderful tool that gets used every year quite a lot by our students. Another tool you won't be able to access until the 30th of September. Now, I'm guessing that many of you are coming to Imperial on a student visa, which means that you may need to look at jobs that are obviously going to sponsor that student visa if you want to stay in the UK. Student Circus is designed as a job database, especially for you. So this has lots of jobs where the employers are very interested in international students in particular, very happy to sponsor visas. If you're a home student, you can still look on here because obviously you have the right to work in the UK anyway. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more about visa support in a minute because it's something we get asked lots of questions about. Now, within Imperial, there's lots of other areas that you can access to get support, find out more information, get some help. So I'm just going to mention a few of these. I would absolutely advise to use these while you can, while you're at Imperial, because they're there, they're designed for you. So the first one I've already gave you a hint about. There's the Attributes and Aspirations short course. So this is an online course which I was involved in developing, and it's available to you now. So it launched yesterday on the 1st of September. And what it's doing, designed to do, there's sort of three main reasons we launched it early. The first one is to help you to understand a little bit more about Imperial, about coming to do master's study. It's got lots of extra help in there around learning things like self-reflection. So Madeline was talking about reflecting. That can absolutely be useful both for your career, but quite a lot of the time it's part of your assessment. So you will need to reflect on feedback you might get during your course. Madeline mentioned time management. We've got a whole unit on time management. So if you want to get ahead of the game, you can start to do that now. But it's also got a whole section on career planning. So a lot of what we're talking about today, it works well with and complements our careers service. So you can get started on that from now. I've put the QR code there, and obviously we'll send the link out to you so you can get started on that. I definitely recommend having a look, especially at the introduction, a few modules anyway, just to, especially if you're feeling a little bit anxious or a little bit nervous. We have the graduate school, so once you arrive at Imperial, you'll have access to this. Now, just a little proviso with the graduate school, they are in the process of changing their name. So when you arrive, you may hear of it referred to as the Early Career Researchers Institute. Don't worry, all of the links that I'm giving you will still work, and they will have an introductory session that you're able to attend during your induction week or during that first week that you're here studying. So you'll learn a lot more about the graduate school. They're really good at supporting you for help with thesis and understanding that kind of academic and researchy type side of things. We work with the graduate school to run a stream of careers sessions specifically for master students with them as well. So you'll find us through that. But just a heads up, they are changing their name. So if you hear someone talking about the Early Career Research Institute, that's the graduate school, okay? International students, I saw we had quite a few. Now, we get lots of questions at the Careers Service about visas for working, whether that's working part-time while you're at university or when you leave, what sort of visas are available for you. It's a really complicated area, and we definitely don't want to get that information wrong because the repercussions are awful. So we have a special group called our International Student Support, and they've got all sorts. You can have one-to-one appointments with them about your visas, and they do the best advice. They do the only advice I would listen to. Every year we hear about some student who's taken visa advice from an academic who, with the best will in the world, they are trying to help you, but they do not understand some of the legalities sometimes. So please be sure if you've got any visa questions, direct them to the International Student Support. Again, you can access them from the 30th of September, but they also run a program where you can meet other international students, and they've got lots of extra things you can get involved in to help you understand UK culture. So definitely check out the International Student Support team. They're wonderful. MarketLine Advantage. Now, this is a product that you can access via the library. Now, again, not until the 30th, unfortunately, but it's basically a very big database about different companies and what's happening within different industries. So if you're interested in applying for a particular company, you could access MarketLine Advantage, and it will give you an impartial view of that company. So they look at things like the company structure, sometimes they have a SWOT analysis, so strengths, weaknesses. That is actually really interesting information if you're looking at applying for a company. So again, you'll be able to access that via the library. If you come to any of our career sessions, we'll tell you more about that in the specifics as well. And now there's a few websites that you can start looking at now that are going to help you to think about some of the things that Madeline was talking about in particular. So the first one I'm going to give you, and actually it's the first two, is about thinking about those jobs that are out there. So lots of students come to us and say, oh, I'm not too sure what I can do with this degree, or I'm not too sure what it means to be a manufacturing engineer. So actually there is a website out there called Prospects. It's written by careers consultants, so a lot of the content on it, is all correct to begin with, which is always a good starting point for the internet. And you can explore these different types of job profiles. If you have a look at our career planning section of our website, we have links through to Prospects with ideas on how to use it really well, just to help you with that, figuring out what's out there type bits of information. And Target Jobs has a similar sort of database that you can access as well. Okay. Now, I know we haven't talked about LinkedIn yet, and I know some of you actually probably can't have a LinkedIn profile from certain countries in the world. So please don't worry if you're putting no here. That's absolutely fine. Sometimes it's just not allowed. However, LinkedIn is one of the tools that we talk about quite a lot with careers, so that it helps you to understand lots of different companies. You can see where our alumni have gone on to, and you can start to understand a little bit about different organizations, who works for them. There's lots of different ways you can gather what we call commercial awareness from LinkedIn. And in fact, we run a Careers Essential on LinkedIn, which I know Madeline mentioned. It's actually one of our most popular how to use LinkedIn well. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, please don't worry. We've got lots of help for you. If you do, and you're not too sure about how to use it, please do come along to some of our LinkedIn events. LinkedIn itself, we've got a web page that has got lots of extra support for LinkedIn, which you will get. And then finally, you can we get lots of questions around, what can I do with this degree? Actually, if you go to the Imperial LinkedIn page, you can do an alumni search. So you just plop this alumni button in, then you put in your master's program, and it will bring up all the people that have that master's program in their profile, and you'll be able to see what they're doing now. And it's a really great resource, and we mention how to do that on our LinkedIn careers webpage. So if you missed my quick run through there, please check out our webpage. It will help you with that. As part of LinkedIn, from the 30th of September, you'll be able to access their suite of learning. So they've got lots of online learning, really helpful if you wanted to just upgrade your info, have a refresher of various different data tools that you might want to use during your thesis. I've recently used it for Power BI, just to have a little refresher on how to do that. So once you arrive at Imperial, you'll be able to access those, and you can access it for up to a year after you graduate as well. Now, this is my final slide where we were hoping to bring everything together, because we know it's a little bit confusing about what you can access now and what you can't. However, hopefully this slide makes everything a little bit clearer. So you can see here the things you can do before you arrive. So these are the things that are open access, and the things that you might want to think about adding to your to-do list. So obviously our website, all open access. That attributes and aspirations course, you can start working through that now. You might want to update or set up your LinkedIn profile if you're able to, and then have a look at some of those other resources that we mentioned. From the 30th of September, there is that once you've got that login and that single sign-on, you're fully enrolled. I know it feels like you're enrolled now. You've said you're enrolled, but you get fully enrolled and confirmed. Once you arrive on the 30th September, you'll be able to access all these other tools. Okay, and that was all that we wanted to tell you in our session today. So I know it's been quite full on. Sorry about that. What I'm going to do is just stop sharing my screen and bring Madeline and see if Rich wants to join us. And we can have a look at, oh, looks like you've answered all the questions, Rich. Is that you two have been squirreling away behind there?
I think
I
between
think Rich
us,
has been doing most of it.
I think we've got most of them. Apologies if we have missed anything. Please, if you've put a question in and you've been ignored because it was going pretty fast through the chat, just stick it in now, and we'll try to pick that up.
Were there any major themes that came out, Rich, that could be useful to talk about? I realise, people, that we are at time, so please do feel free to leave if you've got something pressing. We will continue this recording, and as I said at the start, I'll send you an email later on, well, actually in the next half an hour or so, which has the link where you can find that recording. It won't be uploaded probably until about Friday, but with a link will be there for that. So you can catch up if you do need to rush off, because we did say we would finish at 7 o'clock, and we always try and be very professional at the careers service. So if you do need to leave, please do feel free. Otherwise, if you're happy to stay, Rich, themes, what was coming out?
One theme's probably around the date, 30th of September. I think that's been reiterated many times. So all access 30th of September, when you get access into JobsLive, when you can sign up for newsletters, everything is connected to that JobsLive profile, which you won't be able to get into until the first official day of the new academic year. So that was probably one theme. Another theme, I think, which was touched on in a couple of questions, was using the career service if you're not sure what you want to do, so making some decisions. Is it to PhD or get a job? Absolutely, you can use us for that. You do not have to know what you're going to do. And during the next 12 months of your master's program, we have some people on a 2-year master's program. So apologies, yep, there are some 2 years and most 1-year programs. Your thought process will probably change, and that is what we are here for. So, if you are starting your master's, you've got a very clear plan and you're heading off in a direction, superb, we can help with that. But if your plans change and you go, oh, I wanted to do a PhD and now I've had enough of academia, and come and speak to us. That is what we are here for. You've got a huge number of events. There's a great team around to support you. And yeah, pretty much everything on the web pages. Visit the web pages. You can get into most of our website right now. If you encounter a bit which is locked saying you need a password, that is going to be the 30th of September. But otherwise, everything else is sort of accessible. And then on that first day of term, we're good to go. So I think those are probably the two themes: stressing the 30th of September, and you can use us really for anything. Further study at PhD, not really got a clue what you want to do, career plans change, want specific help trying to apply for a role, we can do all of that.
I just added in the link there as you were talking to our career planning webpage, which it can help with career decision making. So if you wanted to do something before you arrive, please do feel free to have a look at that. It's open access. And I saw Madeline madly typing away.
Yes, we had a question there, which was about if you don't have work experience after your undergraduate degree, is that going to be a disadvantage? So I think that's something that people do worry about, whether they've got enough on their CV basically to kind of land that job role that they're looking for. So I would say, a good way to look at it is that employers, when they're hiring people, they're often really thinking in terms of skills. So thinking in terms of what skills they want you to have that match the kind of role that they're trying to fill. And they're very open-minded about how you can demonstrate having those skills. So it may be that you have a lot more skills than you realize that you do, and you can build that picture of your skills from all sorts of different activities that you've been doing in the past. And it's also possible that you can use your time at Imperial. Maybe if there's some gaps, some skills you don't have, there's loads of stuff going on at Imperial. And so maybe you can engage in some of the activities there that will help you to be able to demonstrate those skills. So I would say, in my experience as a careers consultant, nearly always when I sit down with somebody who's a bit worried about that and we talk it all through, there's a lot more there that they have to offer than they've even realised. And if you're still worried about it, come and talk to us and we can kind of sort of see where you're at and what the next steps could be.
I just jump. Oh, I'm muted. There we go. It's a bit sticky, that mute button. If I just jump on the back of that, I've just put a couple of links into the chat. So if you've not got much experience, there is the Forage, is a platform where you can get e-experience. So it's not an internship, it's not work experience, but it's sort of taster of work. And lots of companies, if you take their Forage program and complete it, might invite you on to something else because they get your contact details. And if you've done the 6 to 8 hour online course, you've clearly enjoyed it, they would assume. You're clearly interested in their type of work, so they might reach out to you with sort of ongoing offers. So that could be a great way if you feel you're lacking experience. Madeline mentioned your experience can come from loads of different places. There are 300 plus clubs and societies at Imperial. So I've just dropped the Students' Union clubs and societies. You will be very busy on your master's program, but they are a great way to go and do something that is not academic related. Great skills, great experience for the CV through those.
Cool.
We've got another question, Katie. Can I pick it up? The one about the PhD.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just noticed that was there. So if I apply for a PhD in 2025, which starts in 2026, will internship opportunities be available for the interim period? Are companies willing to hire for short durations? It's kind of a broad question, that. So it's probably, again, you might have individual circumstances which mean it's worth having an actual individual conversation with a careers consultant. I'm trying to get my dates right there, but I'm assuming here that we've got a situation where you've basically got a gap year. You've got a year between finishing the master's and starting your PhD. It's very common because sometimes people want to take that bit of time to really decide what PhD they want to do. The only thing I'm going to say to you about how you've worded it is I wouldn't be saying I'm looking for an internship. Okay, so basically what you can be doing in that circumstance is looking for a job. Okay, so any job that you do, you're not going to be doing it forever and no one's going to expect you to do it forever. And so it's quite reasonable to start a job and do it for a year and then hand in your notice and leave and move on to your PhD. Okay, so it's a completely reasonable thing to do. So if you start going out there and looking for internships, that's going to limit your opportunities to things that are labelled that way, when in fact what you just want to do is look for the kind of job that you're interested in doing and that you have the skills for. There are, especially in research world, there are fixed term jobs, often called research assistants, which might be for a year or two. And very commonly people do that for a year or so after their master's before a PhD. But if that's not suitable, you could just be looking, for a job that you're interested in doing and just, applying in the normal way. I hope that makes sense there.
Brilliant. I just took a super easy question from who was saying if I apply for jobs after my master's, can I then apply for a professional PhD? You absolutely can. You can apply for a PhD at any point throughout your career, if you like. I've worked with a PhD student who is retired. I worked with them last year. They were absolutely lovely. They were looking at going into research, but they were on the sort of 65, 67. So, that they've come back to do a PhD at that time. So you can do that whenever you want. That's not a problem.
One
Okay.
other theme that I spotted was around part-time work. That came up a couple of times. And I did mention earlier on that there is a part-time web page been developed by Katie and that there is a workshop that's been developed. It is actually live. I just found the link. So it must have gone in today. So I've just posted that into the chat. If anyone is considering part-time work alongside studies. If you are an international student, there obviously, if you're studying with a visa to be in the UK, there are rules and regulations around the amount of hours you can do. So that link has also been posted to the International Student Support page. Worth checking that one out.
So a couple of other questions maybe I'll pick up. There's one here about, can I work in a PhD job while outside of the UK? So I'm just going to say we wouldn't normally consider a PhD to be a job. Maybe PhD students would be offended by that, but they do work very hard, but they're students. Okay, so basically if you're enrolled on a PhD, then you're on a student visa to study in the UK. And so I think typically there would be some requirements for you to be present in the UK, and the university will be responsible for checking up that you're actually where you are kind of based for your studying. So I think in the main, to do a PhD at UK university, you have to be based in the UK. Depending on the research though, sometimes the research involves traveling, and that's usually okay if it's for the purposes of the research. If you have to go and do field trips, or you have to go and use a facility in another country to do your experiments and so on. So sometimes PhDs go and travel in different places for the research purposes, but I think in the most cases, if you're an international student, you need to be kind of based in the UK. If you're actually a home student, if you're a UK student and want to be living abroad while you're doing a PhD, I'm not sure how that would work out really. I think you might have to discuss that with the supervisor that you have. And of course, if you're doing anything to do with lab work, you definitely have to be present for that. But I know there are some kind of say pure mathematicians who might be able to do what they do anywhere in the world. But I think for the most part, people normally are based, close to the university that they're studying in.
Grand. There's one here that's quite specific. So, do employers typically consider 5 years of work experience after an undergraduate degree when evaluating candidates for senior jobs? So, I think that I would say that that's quite specific, and employers deal with work experience that you may have had in the past in various different ways. So as Madeline was talking about, that it's quite often in the UK at least all about those skills. So the skills that you have are what they would consider and evaluate for any level job. I would say. So I'm not sure that the 5 year number would be necessarily a good or a bad thing. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that one? Have they heard that kind of? Yeah, Rich.
Yeah, I'd sort of dive in. I saw that one there and thought I won't type a response because it is quite a complex one and quite specific. I think what I've often heard from the recruiters, if you're going in for sort of a graduate type role, often they're not worried about how much experience you've got, but in the interview process, they would ask why are you applying for a graduate role? And if you can own the narrative around why this is a good career move for you, why you're coming on to the training program, then often they're very happy with that if you can own that narrative and own that discussion. If you can't answer that, that's when they start going, well, is this going to be a good fit and a good sort of connection and role for you in the organization? So it's quite a interesting one. Possibly, I would say, for whoever's asked that question, as soon as the 30th of September has happened, you can get into the system, probably book an appointment and come talk it through with someone in a bit more detail, because we might want to be looking at your CV and talking through options. But I think that that work will be counted, but it's how you tell that story.
Brilliant. Well, I'm not actually seeing any new questions coming in, so I'm going to suggest that we wrap it up. there. We are 10 minutes over, so apologies, people, for keeping you 10 minutes. But hopefully that was useful for you. As I said, I'm now going to download all the slides and make sure everything's sorted, and then I'll send you out the slides and the resources sheet so you can get started on some of those things that we talked about that you're able to do before the 30th of September right away, if you so wish to. You might want to wait until tomorrow if you're in the UK and having the night off, absolutely fine. But you'll get all that detail, and you will be able to access the recording if you missed anything and want to have a little catch up from Friday. So we'll make sure that that's all up, and the link will be in the email for you. So thank you very much, everyone. We look forward to seeing you at Imperial when you arrive in the end of the year. We are at all of the sort of events that you can come along to in your induction. So please do come and say hi and make use of your career service while you're with us. Thanks a lot, team.